What if I told you the poor and middle class use debt to buy things they can't afford just to impress people who really don't care? But the rich, they use debt to build assets that make them richer. Most people go into debt to buy things they can't afford, like trucks, TVs, vacations, and stuff that loses value. But the wealthy, they think differently. They buy assets, businesses, real estate, investments, things that put money back into their pocket every single month. Debt itself isn't bad. The real problem is whether or not money is building your future or draining your finances. Hi, Dan West here, Farmer Dan. I just want to talk a little bit today about kind of debt and how the rich and wealthy think different. But I want to ask you a question, and I'd like you to just leave your comments. Answer the question. Leave the comment in the comment section. But my question is, what's the purpose of making money? Well, I've come to realize that I used to think the reason to make money was to pay bills. And I've come to realize now that that's how the poor and middle class think. But the rich and the wealthy, they think differently. They use their money to create more money, to buy assets, income producing assets that start building cash flow. And it's got me on this journey of thinking a little bit differently and trying to figure out ways that I can multiply my money. There's a lot of different ideas out there. There's those out there that believe that it's unbiblical to be in debt. I kind of wrestle with that a little bit. Don't have the full definition or understanding yet because I just don't see I see certain passages in scripture that talk about not owing money or owing anybody anything. There's the scriptures that those that are advocating being debt free use um, with regards to borrowing money from foreign countries. And I guess you could make the argument that borrowing money from the bank could be considered a foreign country. I don't know if that's the intent of that scripture because we see different examples throughout scripture, the different parables. I mean, Jesus had the parable of the three servants, and the master gave one 5 talents, the second one 2 talents, and the one talent. And the one that had 5 talents doubled his money. Same with the one that had 2 talents. But the one that had 1 talent, he buried it out of fear of losing it. And the master called him a wicked servant, but uses the example of at least put it in the bank to earn interest. So it seems like the banking system was something that the Jewish culture would have been familiar with. Otherwise, that statement wouldn't make any sense. So I'm not sure. I mean, I do see scripture talking about there's certain wisdom involved with borrowing and lending, certain principles to live by. I'm not sure it fully condemns it though. And as I've studied and listened to those that are wealthy and how they view money, guys like Robert Kiyosaki, who is known for his book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then somebody I listen to on a regular basis is Myron Golden, and I've really come to just appreciate his insights with money and what scripture says about money and finances and things. And that's where I've really started to think about money a little bit differently, starting with Robert Kiyosaki and his book. I actually bought the game Cash Flow, and I play that with my kids. It just helps teach financial literacy, shows you different ways of getting out of the rat race, seeing opportunities, generating that passive income. But I just been just contemplating it because I want, just because somebody says, or this is how the rich people think, doesn't necessarily mean it's right or biblical. So, I'm trying to sort some of that out of my mind. It definitely makes sense to me how they use even debt to create wealth and assets. I've listened to some of the different podcasts and clips of podcasts of those that advocate being debt free, and the different callers that call in and ask for insight. And, I've really started thinking about the idea of using the bank's money over my money to buy things, because I can use the bank's money cheaper than I can my own money. And so they've had callers call in that have the money to pay off their house, but really feel like, they're paying such low interest on that loan that they would be better off investing that. And that's kind of where I'm at. I would agree with that statement, but those that are really advocating being debt free disagree with that and have the argument that, it's peace of mind, and you can use the money that you would be paying your mortgage with once you got your house paid off, start investing that. But simple logic just doesn't connect with me. Like, the sooner you can start compounding interest, the better. And I don't, you can't, you just will never get caught up. So let's say he owes $250,000 on his house, and he has that quarter of a million sitting there, and he's making 6% on it, which I'll go into that later. I think that's extremely low. I think there's better ways of investing it with a little bit more management. But even at 6%, and he's paying 3%, he's like, why would I pay off my mortgage when I could make an extra 3%? And they would argue that it's peace of mind. I would argue that while, yes, it can be somewhat risky because it's in the market and you could lose it all, the peace of mind is still there, because if you had to pay off your mortgage, the money's still there. It's not like the money's gone. Again, like I said, assuming, right, that you don't lose it all in the stock market or in your investment, but it's still something that you could liquidate and pay off your house in a pinch if you needed to. So to me, that's peace of mind. But if you think about, and it's kind of hard to come up with exact numbers without an actual scenario, but let's say he takes $250,000 and starts compounding interest on that. The amount that he would have when it comes to his time to retire, which I don't agree with retirement. That's another subject, perhaps for another time. But for the case of argument here, let's just say that he's been compounding interest on $250,000 for 30 or 40 years, as opposed to paying off your mortgage and now using the money that you would be paying your mortgage with. So, let's say that's $1,500 a month. Like you'll never catch up. It's impossible. That's just, to me, just kind of simple logic. And I know they're proud of themselves for being debt free and buying all this real estate, things with cash. But I also sit there and wonder, how much farther along could you actually be if you started to think more like a rich person and not be so opposed to debt. There's another factor that could go into the scenario of 1,500. Somehow maybe he saved up $250,000. Maybe he inherited. I don't, it's hard to say. But let's just, for argument's sake, let's say he's even been able to save that up. I don't care what number you come up with. It's like you can't. Let's say he's able to put 5,000 because he's been able to save up that money over the course of, that'd be quite a bit. I mean, say 10,000. Let's say he's able to put 10,000 there a month and start building compounding interest, starting at 10,000 versus the $250,000. Like, like simple logic's just not, it's not there. Like it just doesn't support it. You'll never get caught up. Now back to the interest rate. I personally think there's better ways of doing it. I think, you know, there's, yes, there can be some greater risk, but the rewards can be higher too. You know, investing in startup companies, investing in real estate. You know, I've played around with doing stock options and subscribe to different platforms of people that that's what they do. They cash flow stocks and they're doing all the research. So in a sense, I hire them for as a consultor, but I'm doing the work myself. It's a learning curve, but I do think the returns are way greater than 6 or even 10%. But even just using those lower interest rates, it still doesn't pay, in my opinion. But what if you could actually double your money every year by putting a little bit more time and effort into your investments? And that could be a lot of different things depending on what your interest is. I've kind of grown to love trading stock options, and so I'm learning that aspect. You can actually trade with paper money in Thinkorswim, which is a Charles and Schwab platform. So you can learn without actually playing with real money. So you can kind of figure out how things work and how to set up stop losses and things like that to protect yourself. So I think those that are advocating being debt free really are thinking really small. They're comparing 3% to 6% or even 10%. But I'm here to say, what if you could double your money every year by taking a little bit more time? Now all of a sudden, maybe you're taking, that quarter of a million. And I'm not advocating taking the whole thing and putting it in stock options, but diversifying and finding stocks or buying real estate and other things. But what if you took 10% of that, had 25,000 and turned that into 50,000 in a year? Now all of a sudden that's an extra couple $1,000s a month that you could technically pull out. Now, I would say your best bet is I've heard it described by Byron Golden as your mama money. You put your mama money into these investments and you never take out the mama money. You always let the mama money produce baby money. Perhaps the baby money you use to cash flow things or take things out to help build some monthly income, or you just let that continue to grow and use it. But the key is keeping that mama money intact. You never take it out, let it keep producing more money. The idea is to get yourself to a place, and this is what Robert Kiyosaki's Game Cash Flow really teaches you, is to get out of the rat race, you have to build your passive income to exceed your monthly expenses. So let's say your monthly expenses with all your bills and payments and debts and stuff is, $5,000. You are buying different rental properties or stocks, and you reach that point where now all of a sudden you're making, say, $6,000 a month in passive income. Now that's where your time and financial freedom really comes in, because you don't have to work a day in your life anymore, because your assets are producing enough income to pay your expenses. Again, I'm not advocating not working. I think working is good and working hard is good. But just think about the time freedom that you can generate by just really not having to stress about paying bills, because your assets are producing your money. And that's where that freedom really comes in. Now you can start enjoying life a little bit more, enjoying family, helping other people, spending time with family that may not be around much longer, using that money to buy back your time. Scripture talks about redeeming your time for the days are evil. If you looked at that up in the Strong's Concordance, the idea of redeem is to buy back, literally buy back. And when it says the days are evil, it's not talking about evil in the sense of the wickedness of the world. It's talking about life being hard. So it's the idea of, making money to redeem time, to buy back your time. Why? Because life is hard. And if you can generate some money to buy back your time, hire more things done, that gives you the opportunity to have more experiences, more vacations with the people that really matter the most in your life. So that's my thoughts for the evening. Let me know what you think. Tell me if you agree, disagree. Tell me what you think the purpose of money is, or maybe if this has helped you think about the purpose of money a little bit differently. And let's talk. Let's have a friendly discussion. I'm okay with somebody disagreeing with me, but I think we can do it in a respectful way. So for now, this is Farmer Dan. We'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.